This is Money Motivation and Mike, and I am your host, Michael Wainwright. In charge of all the controls and the mothership is audio engineer Jason Wright. And hello to you, world. This is the show that will change your life. You can always contact us at info@mx3.vip and find all of our content, mx3.vip, or on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@mx3podcast. And don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so that you receive all of our content, which comes out basically every Monday morning at 9 o'clock. Very interesting numbers that we've had over the last couple of days here, over the last week, Jason, and our audience continues to grow. We'll touch on that real quick, and then we'll get on to a reaction video that I think is of importance. I'm intrigued by it, and we'll get into that here just momentarily. But over the last 28 days, our YouTube channel, Jason, has had 11,307 views. We are up drastic numbers. Just from the previous 28 days, we're up 156%. That's very strong. I'm very excited about that. Podcast over the last 30 days, 26,937. You can see right there. I mean, we're approaching 40,000 over the course of a 28-day period between our two channels of our YouTube and podcast. Very, very nice. You continue to show us a lot of grace and continuing to listen to our content of our show. And that's why we believe that we're continuing to bring you the goodies that we do. And of course, the last couple of weeks, we talked about the Dallas Cowboys, and I forgot to bring a Dallas Cowboy jersey during those shows. And today I wore my favorite player of all time, football, baseball, basketball, everything, the legendary Roger Staubach, Mr. Cowboy himself. Now, I know Bob Lilly has that name because he was on the original teams back in the day. Well, he was actually on the second team. He got drafted he was the very first ever draft pick. But back in those days, you didn't get a draft when you had an expansion team. So how they helped build those teams back then, let's take the Carolina Panthers and Jacksonville Jaguars, two expansion teams. Now, since then, there's been the new Cleveland Browns and the Houston Texans, teams that have came into the league. But we'll just take those two teams that came in back in 1996. They did not have to go handpick players that were out on the streets. They got to be a part of the draft. In 1960, the Dallas Cowboys didn't get to be a part of the draft. They had players that were released, or there was a pool of each team had to put up so many players that the Cowboys got to pick from. So if one of your players got to pick, then you got to protect so many so that you didn't get your whole roster. Of course, you're putting guys out there at the end that not necessarily are some of your key players. You know, you weren't going out. Joe Namath was not available, let's say. In 1960, he wasn't even in the league. Let's go with Frank Gifford, quarterback of the New York Football Giants. He was not available to be picked up because he was protected. And there in the early mid-90s, we had Plan B free agency, where you could only protect 37 players. The others were vulnerable to go to another team. That's how we got Jay Novacek. And think about that, 3 Super Bowls later. Yeah. Yes, those kind of things. James Washington, who really should have been the MVP of the Super Bowl that I was fortunate enough to get to go to, Super Bowl 28. He really should have been the MVP. Our boy Emmitt Smith got it. You know, it always goes to the offensive player over the defensive player. Which therein lies another episode of Super Bowl V, which Chuck Howley is the only player on a losing team to be the MVP of a Super Bowl still to this day. And, of course, the Dallas Cowboys have had 4 defensive MVPs. Did you know that, Joseph?
I did not know that.
And we've also had co-MVPs. 1977, Harvey Martin and Randy White, co-MVPs of the Super Bowl. And then the legendary Larry Brown, Super Bowl 30. When we finally beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Larry Brown was the MVP of that because I think Neil O'Donnell had maybe some color blindness that day because he was throwing them right to old Larry boy. and there was no Pittsburgh Steelers in the area. Nevertheless, that we're going to get back to NFL football, and I know that we have had a couple of shows already and frankly a subject there that I can talk a lot about. And gosh, I've got my list of shows over here that we want to do. You know, we went over this here last week or the week before. You know, we got to do a show with The Godfather and the NFL AFL merger. and right on down from there. I want to do a podcast, YouTube podcast show on Roger Staubach, because I can talk about him for days, and we haven't even touched on college football. But today, Jason, our show's going to feature and go around Donald Trump. And I know Donald Trump has a lot of rallies, still does rallies, has frankly never quit doing rallies since he was, let's say, defeated, stripped of the election. I mean, it just depends on what your take of it is. Yeah, what your take of it is. That's exactly right. And but he come out and did an exclusive interview this week with Meet the Press, and the interviewer was Kristen Welker. And they did an interview for, I think, over an hour. Sure. And so we're going to do some reactions to that video, that Meet the Press show that was on MSNBC here just this week. So why don't we now roll and let's get going, and let me see what I think about what's going on here. All
right. The case related to Mar-a-Lago. A new charge suggests you asked a staffer to delete security camera footage so it wouldn't get into the hands of investigators. Did you do that? It's false.
But let me tell you what.
Would you testify to that under oath?
I'll testify.
You testify to that under oath?
It's a fake charge by this deranged lunatic prosecutor who lost in this.
Okay. Right off the bat. This whole, and by the way, Jason, you stay up on these topics as well.
I try to.
So feel free to interact anytime you want. The whole investigation down there was about deleting of tapes. And the very first statement out of the former president's mouth, and I believe we had a show here a couple of weeks ago where he was the disgraceful former president. Isn't that right? Whenever he landed and got arrested, etc. A whole lot of that.
Well, the whole thing was actually as classified documents he had at Mar-a-Lago.
Yes, right. But the whole deal was
the reason for the raid anyway.
Yeah, the whole deal is that these tapes or whatever was erased, where he had somebody erase them, blah blah blah, and now he's saying that's totally false and would testify under oath. All right, and then he just called someone a lunatic.
Jack Smith,
which Supreme Court. Is that correct?
Well, prosecutor for the other side against Trump is Jack Smith.
That's right. Okay, and I think that's who he just called a lunatic.
I believe that's who he's referring to.
Now, just setting the record straight, I voted for Donald Trump both times. So whenever I make these comments, I want people to know that this show is trying to just get to the bottom of where this is, Money, Motivation, and Mike, giving our reaction to these videos and giving our opinions of what we see. So my first comment is, I voted for him both times, okay? I, in my wildest imagination, cannot believe that a president of the United States would call anybody a lunatic. Nevertheless, I know he's been doing that for quite some time. I don't care for that conversation. I don't care for that kind of language, but it irks me when he uses those kind of words about people. And not to say that they shouldn't be, that's who they are. Maybe they are.
Are you saying as a president?
As a president or former president, as the most powerful person in the world, when you hold that position and you're calling somebody a lunatic, I'm not sure that that's what you should be saying. Matter of fact, I know that's not what you should be saying, but that's nevertheless.
Supreme Court 9-0, and he tried to destroy lots of lives. He's a lunatic. So it's a fake charge. But more importantly, the tapes weren't deleted. In other words, there was nothing done to them. And they were my tapes. I could have fought them. I didn't even have to give them the tapes, I don't think. I think I would have won in court. When they asked for the tapes, I said, sure, they're my tapes. I could have fought them. I didn't even have to give them. Just so you understand, though, we didn't delete anything. Nothing was deleted.
So that's false. The people who testified.
Number one, the statement is false. Much more importantly, when the tapes came, and everybody says this, they weren't deleted. We gave them 100%.
Okay.
And just.
Okay. Now, as you know, anytime the law enforcement is doing there's been a robbery at the local convenience store, You know they're hitting every tape around there trying to get evidence. Someone, they got in a fight. Someone got stabbed. Someone got killed. Whatever. They're always looking for the tapes or the video surveillance in that area to see if they can come up with something that will help the case. So I don't know. He says he thinks he could fight it in court, that they wouldn't even be able to see the tapes. I don't know if he would even have the opportunity to fight that. Maybe because he's Donald Trump, maybe because of the former president. But I think at your house, if you had footage on your front porch and a guy across the street beat up someone, they're going to be getting your tapes today. Who knows?
Well, if you're not directly related to the case, that's where I'm questioning. So if something happens, across the street, but I have surveillance that may have caught it. Okay. Now, am I obligated to provide that to them is the question. Now, in his case, they had a warrant to seize anything that was there. Now, that was footage of the raid that I believe they were asking for.
Yes. The point is that they were raiding, they believed a crime had been committed, and they're going to get those doggone tapes. Now, no doubt about it, in my eyes, with the service that with the justice that we have today.
Mm-hmm. Just so you know, I offered them. I said, if you want to look at tapes, you can look at them.
Let's move on to January 6th.
Okay. Why? And also, she asked that question. If he's already given up the tapes, and there was nothing erased, and he's already stated that, why are we discussing it?
It's irrelevant now.
Yeah. But okay, we're moving on to January 6th for what I just heard her say.
And the allegations that you tried to subvert the election. And again, I just want to give you a chance to talk about this because voters want to hear about this. The most senior lawyers in your own administration and on your campaign told you that after you'd lost more than 60 legal challenges, that it was over. Why did you ignore them and decide to listen to a new outside group?
Because I didn't respect them.
All right. I know what I know that he's going to fixing to comment on this. You could go through 60 lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do business with a lawyer, when you do business with a doctor, we're talking about these professionals, when you do business with accountants, you're going to know real quickly whether they're your guy or gal or not.
Mm-hmm.
He went through 60. Now he doesn't respect any of them. Is it because that they have the information that he don't want to hear, or they don't know what they're talking about?
Or maybe they don't want to. Maybe they don't want to be a part of it.
Sure, but that doesn't mean, you hire them, you never met these people, you get a recommendation, they turn out to be rhinos or they turn out to be not so good. In many cases, I didn't respect them, but I did respect.
What do you think a rhino lawyer is, Jason? Just curious.
I don't even know.
Respect others. I respected many others that said the election was rigged. Look, we have many people, and it's my choice.
Okay, he respected the people who said the election was rigged. Did he respect any of the people who said the election was not rigged? Obviously, he doesn't respect the guy that he chose to be his vice president, Mike Pence, because right. Mike Pence signed off saying the election was official, on the up and up, whatever. And I think we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. He thought it was the constitutional proper thing to do.
Right.
In his own personal opinion, maybe he didn't feel that it was totally done on the up and up. I don't know that he's ever came out and ever even said that. Do you? Have you heard it?
No, I don't know.
I think he moved on, and I think he moved, and Trump moved him on, and now he's on to bigger and better things. And
he's running for president.
Yeah, I got a feeling that the two of these guys are fixing to be talking to each other.
Yeah.
I happen to know that the election was rigged. Okay, I know it because I have there's so much proof of ballot stuffing. It's amazing.
Okay. He said it's rigged, and he has so much proof of ballot stuffing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that there was a big deal in Georgia.
Still is.
Yep, big deal in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And was it Michigan?
I don't know.
Pennsylvania?
I believe so.
If we have so much evidence, he has so much evidence, why don't he he's got gazillions of dollars, supposedly, and that's perception as well. Is perception reality with what he really has? Who knows? Why don't he just do his own little 30-minute blurb on one of these? Rent out 30 minutes from all the networks. They'll sell it to you.
Maybe.
And come. That's true too. Okay.
Fox News will.
Good point. Good point. And then, well, whatever station he went on, it would be highly watched if he's got something to say about the election.
Might depend on the station's narrative that they're pushing.
Well, that
and if they really want to get down to the truth or not. So that's the question.
Are you questioning the newscast? But nevertheless, why don't he just bring all that stuff forward and just say this? And I think he thinks he has.
Well, I think that he's about to be able to in a court of law with all these indictments, and he hadn't had that opportunity. These indictments actually opened it up for him to bring all that.
Yes, but from the second Tuesday in November to January the 6th, when the election was certified, there was about 2 months period there. Why? Surely there was some kind of information that he could have brought up then. If I was in let's just say a local election, and I think most of the people who listen to our show know that I was elected twice to the Denison City Council. But nevertheless, if I felt that I had been rigged, or my opponent had won a rigged election, and I had proof of that, I'd be coming out with it the next day. I'd be down at City Hall jumping up and down. I would be on the local news stations talking about that stuff.
Yeah. But, there was 2 months to try to gather all that.
Yes.
So, and a lot of it's come out since then. Now, I don't know what was available during that first 2 months, but.
Sure. And we may never know.
We may never know.
It may be another JFK deal.
Amazing. Right just a little while ago, in terms of the modern history, where the 51 intelligence agents said very specifically they lied. They all lied. And they said about the laptop that it was Russia disinformation. That was a lie. That had a huge impact on the election. In fact, the pollsters said.
Did all 51 of those intelligence agents say they lied?
I don't know about that. Now,
He said all.
Well, I did hear that that they were taking around this piece of paper for everybody to sign off on, and they didn't do their due diligence. They just signed off on it. That's what I have heard.
You think that's what he's referring to?
I believe so.
Say over 10 points. I didn't need 10 points. I needed 1/10 of a point. If you take a look at the Twitter files with the FBI and Twitter dealing, that had a huge impact on the election. Just those things. But in addition to that, you have ballot stuffing, you have a lot of.
When you say you needed 1/10 of a point, you needed 1/10 of a point.
I needed a very small. I think somebody said 22,000 votes.
To win?
Yeah. If you divide it among the states, it was 22,000 votes, something to that effect. Yeah.
To win the election?
Yeah, if I would have had another 22,000 votes over the whole. But look, they rigged the election. If you look at Pennsylvania,
but Mr. President, you're saying you needed more votes to win the election. Are you acknowledging you didn't win?
If you look at all of the statistics, all of the votes, they say 22,000 votes, over millions and millions of votes, 22,000 votes. So when they do Twitter files, or when they have 51 intelligence agents come out and lie that the laptop from hell was Russia disinformation, and now they find out it's not. But they knew that at the time. They cheated on the election in that way, too.
I just want to be clear, though. Are you saying you needed those votes in order to win? Are you acknowledging you didn't win?
I'm not acknowledging. No, I say I won the election.
Okay. Even though, again.
Now,
I knew that wasn't what he was saying. I mean, I think she's a smart girl. I think
she's a good reporter. She knows the questions to ask.
Well,
and or she seems to, for sure. I think it is un-American for you to say, I won the election and you didn't win the election. I'm talking about the certification of it.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, it's just like in a ball game when your guy was 100%. Everybody in the world saw that the guy got under the tag. The player got under the tag, and he was safe at home. That would have won the game. And now you have to go to extra innings because it's a tie.
Mm-hmm.
And the other team ends up winning. Do you leave the field saying we won that game? Well, it still shows a loss in the loss column. We won that game, and the umpires rigged us.
Yep.
I mean, you hear it all the time.
Like, who's paying him off?
Yeah, exactly. So, as a person who has been the president of the United States for 4 years and is right now, the leading candidate, I believe, with the Republican Party, and I believe he's there's nobody even close.
Yeah, he's leading the Republican Party. Last I checked, like 55,
a whole bunch.
56%.
A whole bunch to not enough. And now, Jason, he's fixing to be back in the presidential race.
Mm-hmm.
And it probably is going to be him, and I would think it'd probably be him and Biden. I don't know of a standing president that has ever lost his party's seat or his nomination for the next go round.
The incumbent president.
Yes, sir. So it's fixing to be the two of them battling again. But he's already saying
Trump was an incumbent.
I'm sorry?
Trump was an incumbent.
All right. Let's see if we can finish this up.
Your lawyers told you did not.
No.
Did you just let me
Some
understand?
people told me that,
Okay.
but many people told me the opposite.
Just, you called some of your outside lawyers. You said they had crazy theories. Why were you listening to them? Were you listening to them because they were telling you what you wanted to hear?
You know who I listened to myself? I saw what happened. I watched that election, and I thought the election was over at 10 o'clock in the evening.
You were listening to your instincts.
My instincts are a big part of it. That's been the thing that's gotten me to where I am, my instincts. But I also listen to people. There are many lawyers. I could give you many books. There are books that are written on how the election was rigged. There are numerous books that were written on how the election was rigged.
Just to be clear, were you listening to your lawyer's advice or were you listening to your own instincts?
I was listening to different people, and when I added it all up, the election was rigged. There are books
Were you
that
calling
are
the
written.
shots, though?
In fact, Molly Hemingway wrote a great book.
But were you
called
calling the
Rigged.
shots ultimately?
Excuse me. Molly Hemingway, who's highly respected and great, she wrote a book, a best-selling book called Rigged.
Were you calling the shots, though, Mr. President, ultimately?
As to whether or not I believed it was rigged, oh, sure.
Okay.
It was my decision, but I listened to some people. Some people said that. Like guys like Bill Barr, he was a stiff, but he wasn't there at the time. But he didn't do his job because he was afraid. You know what he was afraid of? He was afraid of being impeached. He was petrified to be impeached. And how do you not get impeached? Don't do anything.
Now, that is a huge statement in itself. Like if you go out and what I think he's saying there is, if you go out and you really are going to do presidential things, if you're really going to go out and do political things, you probably will get impeached. That's what I believe he just said. How do you not get impeached? Don't do anything. Because if you go out and do something, you could get impeached.
Wrap your head around that one.
The only reason I'm getting impeached, ma'am, is because I've been out doing things.
Yeah.
And trying to do what's best for the country. Now, I did say when this show started that I have voted for the man twice.
Yes.
And a lot of the ideas and a lot of the things that he has said, in my eyes, are correct. But just like a lot of the things that we talk about on this show and a lot of the things that we talked about in the early episodes back when we started doing our show, was your presentation and your belief factor and those kind of things that come along, and his approach and his presentation, his persona, who he was in the 1980s and the Art of the Deal book and all that. I believe that another person bringing his agenda would have gotten better results, because he upsets so many people. They turn him off before he delivers the message.
Yeah.
And the message is a good message in most cases, but his approach to what he's trying to get accomplished is for the most part wrong. And that's where he comes up short. Now, he has always said that he's a businessman, not a politician. And now you've got a businessman in office. Okay. Just like in this interview, where he continues to try to talk over the interviewer, the moderator. That is so political, it's not even funny. questions get asked and the answers don't come back in the exact, hey, is it light outside? It's yes or no question. Did you, where were you when this happened? It's a pretty easy question. And a lot of those things he doesn't want to talk about. Maybe he can't. Maybe there, with some of these cases are going on. Let's run this just a little bit farther, Jason.
I've heard so much, Mr. President, about that day, the actual day of January 6th, from other people. Yeah. But quite frankly, we haven't heard from you about your own perceptions of how that day unfolded. Sure. We've heard you talk about the rally, and I'm curious about what happened when you got back to the White House. I know you spent most of the day in the dining room. What were you doing in there? How were you watching it unfold?
So let me just tell you about January 6th. First of all, I had very little to do with January 6th. I was asked to speak. And I was the President of the United States. I'm allowed to do that. But I was asked to speak. Other groups, I think it was women's groups, a lot of people were involved in that. And it was incredible. It was incredible. It was, I think, the largest group I've ever spoken. You never see that. You never see pictures of the group that I was speaking to. I think it was the most people and I've spoken to some very large groups. Hundreds of thousands of people were there, and it was a beautiful, beautiful sight. But just so you understand, I went and I spoke. And by the way, peacefully and patriotically, and all of that.
We're a minute into this question. And his last comment after saying everything he said is, I went and I spoke. So we're 60 seconds in, and he's finally addressed that he spoke. I know that this thing right here is going to continue on. I don't know it, but I know it, that we're going to just go back and forth, bickering back and forth and talking over each other. I got an idea, Jason. I think what we are to do in the near future, and probably sooner than later, maybe in the next couple of weeks. And I know we have a lot of things that we're doing here, and it's football season, et cetera. But I really believe we need to do a show on January the 6th. And we need a reaction video, because I have not sat down and watched his total speech. I have never done that. After the fact, it was more about the coverage, what happened at the Capitol, and what was going on, and those kind of things. And did he provoke? Did he not provoke? Blah blah blah. And isn't there a podcaster that was involved in something like this?
Don't know his name, but yeah, there was somebody that just got sentenced to 20+ years for their involvement in January 6th.
And he was not even in Washington,
Wasn't even
D.C.
there. That's right.
Did something over his show.
Correct.
Encourage people to whatever.
Possibly enticed them, so that's what we should probably look into, see what we can find out about that.
And he just got sentenced.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay, I think that we need to have a show on January the 6th. Run his talk there, and react to that. And I'm curious, and please, info at mx3.vip, email us and tell us if you've ever heard the full speech in its entirety. And of course, we'll have to go through it and cut out and try to get on to some of the points that he's trying to make. But we need to do that. And so that we can have our own opinions. I know that Malargo and January the 6th are two of the things that she's talking about here, and obviously they're very, very controversial both ways. The main thing that I would like to finish in saying is we got another very comical, very entertaining heck of an election coming up over the next year and a half.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Here we are, about 13 months.
Yeah,
we'll be right back in this situation. It's hard to believe that we are almost 3 years in to the Biden administration.
Yeah,
and I don't want to be disrespectful, but just like with the vice president, most people don't even know her name. You ask somebody, who's our vice president? And the reason I bring this out is because I got in a conversation over this yesterday too. And they go, and then they just pause and, oh, it's that woman. It's that woman. That's all they know. Yeah. And then they will work into, I think her last name's Harris. They don't know.
Yeah, no, they don't.
It's once again, it's 2023.
Yes.
So it'll be anxious to see what goes on over the next 13 months. And we're going to cover a whole lot of that here at Money, Motivation, and Mike. And once again, as always, please email us, info@mx3.vip, and you can find all our content at mx3.vip, or you can go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@mx3podcast. And don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and hit the icon bells. Jason, thank you for all your help in this, as always, and going out and finding some reaction videos. And we're going to continue to discuss all these things. I promise you we're going to get back to some of these topics that we've talked about. Right now, I want to think, Jason, we have enough topics without even thinking about coming up with a topic to get us to January the 1st. And then on and on from there. And, of course, it's going to be an election year, and there's going to be a lot of crazy things happening, not only on the local level and the state level, but at the national level. And we're going to cover all that stuff right here at Money, Motivation, and Mike. And I like it. I'm intrigued. And apparently our listening audience is as well, because they continue to listen, continue to show us the numbers that we have, and we continue to grow this show. Thank you. Thank all of you for listening. And once again, until next time, continue to live your life the right way.